we're getting ready to spray. I'm going to cover one more point on the paints, and that's a lot's going to depend on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to just get a solid color on a vehicle, basically you're using the Createx paints as an alternative to a spray can. You're spraying one color, then you can thin and play and use whatever you want. Windex, Future, Createx, thinner, whatever you want to do. You don't have to use any thinner at all. All you got to worry about is getting a good spray pattern that's laying down real nice and spray that car. And then just hit it with a clear coat. Real simple. And that's an alternative right there. Just one solid color. You're not having to worry about masking, layers, stripes, flames, anything like that. If you're just spraying it one color, basically you can turn your airbrush into just a spray can alternative. Very simple. And use whatever you want, whatever works for you, whatever's looking good. I would advise using a test piece to try it on first. If it's spraying good and looking good and you got the pressure and the needles and just whatever's working for you, spray the car, clear it, and you're done. Then you can step up to the next step, which would be a two-tone. Again, just spray whatever. Maybe spray the lighter color, spray the model, mask. In this case, I put my masking halfway up these delineation points here, because I didn't have to worry about paint buildup when I did my second color, because all I did is when I sprayed my second, remove my masking, and there was a delineation of between the colors and a ridge. I just took a little bit of wet sandpaper, and I just kind of smoothed this stuff off, because all I was doing was going over it with some bare metal foil. So it hid any blemishes or possibly peeling on the edge, or possibly a different ridge. So you can still kind of just use whatever works for you and get a two-tone if you're able to hide that edge, like I did on this model. But where the stuff totally changes is when you're trying to do flames and things like that. Then you start running into the big issues with this paint. The Achilles tendon of this paint, or Achilles heel, because you've got to really think about your thinning, how thin the paint is, how to get those edges to not be obvious. You can't really sand this stuff and blend it, so this is where the Achilles heel comes in. And then there's a second Achilles heel with these paints, and that's what thinner you use. Now, if you use the Createx base for thinning, it works great, thins well, is strong, holds good, because you're now knowing that you're going to be doing some masking and things like that. But you cannot go too far with this stuff. It'll start changing your color. It'll start making it milky if you go too far with this. But you can heat dry. When you use this thinner in the Createx paint, you can heat dry it and be totally ready for your next color. It's completely cured. It's done. You don't have to wait so many days for the paint to cure. If you go to the Future, you can thin it much more and use a smaller needle and go a lot further with it, because this is kind of, I guess you would call liquid acrylic, and it's clear, or fairly clear. You can put a lot more of this in there. You can really thin the paint down, but not advisable, in my opinion, to heat dry this stuff, because what will happen is it will dry a skin on the paint, and the paint underneath that skin cannot gas out or evaporate. So you need to let it dry for a long time. And if you try to mask over it, you're really going to take it, the chances of it peeling are very high. This stuff is designed to gas out with heat setting, okay? So that's the big difference in using the Future and using this. That's the big confusion, of why, that's kind of the whys that you would use one over the other. If you're using a WATA, HPC, whatever, you're really going to have to thin these paints down to get them to spray smoothly. And the only way to do that is going to have to use Future and over thin the stuff. What I have here is a test piece that I have done everything that I've done to the model, I've done to this test piece. This is a piece of styrene, and I sprayed it with primer just like I sprayed this. I wet sanded it just like I did this. I actually hit this again with another thin layer of primer. Did the same here. Wet sanded that down. Was happy with the, I had all the blemishes done. Did the same here. And then, in this case, I actually used the white paint, just a very thin layer, and I wet sanded it to give it some tooth and to reveal any more final little blemishes. Did the same here. This is wet sanded. Two identical surfaces. So I'm going to actually use this for demonstration because it's going to take me a little longer to try to do the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a coat of the chameleon blue. That stuff's pretty thick. Alright. And I'm going to kind of guesstimate about half of that of the illustration base. So I'm doing a 2-to-1. Okay, and then I got my paint in the cup now, and I'm using my Badger 155, which is a general all-purpose medium needle. Actually, it's a dual angle. I'm going to spray a little, just to... Okay, I'm spraying it about 20-25 psi. Okay, you're not going to see much here. Okay, that's it. Stop. You can kind of see the gloss on it, and it's kind of, there's dry spots and glossy areas. Just stop. Don't put a bunch of paint on. That's the worst thing you can do with these paints. Then get your hair dryer. Okay, and it's turned flat. It looks glossy because of the iridescence of the paint, but it's it's flattened out. You could dry it a little longer. The more drying, the better. All right, and then back to another layer. Okay, and you can still see that there's areas that are covered a little more than others. Don't get all rambunctious and try to do it all in one pass. See, it's starting to flow together, and you're starting to see that blue sheen coming off of it. Don't go crazy and put too much on. What's going to happen is if you put too much on and then heat set it, it's going to skin over just like it would happen with the Future. And then that underlying layer is not going to dry quite as much or cure as best as it could. You start masking, it's going to peel. So whatever, the more thinner layers and the more drying you do between layers is worth it. So I'm going to continue on. And if you notice, I spray off of the part and then I make sure I'm getting a good spray, and then I go to the part. Okay?